Hi, and welcome. And real quick, the Podcast Engineering School, the online training program, is starting on April 4th. Go to the website for all the details, podcastengineeringschool.com. That's right, it's going to be online training. Barry, you like online training, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I thought so. So check out the website for more information, podcastengineeringschool.com. Well, welcome to the Podcast Engineering Show. Imagine, Mike, if I started like that. People would be like, what is this, NPR? Please.
Sounds good.
Sounds good, but it's not the nature of this show. This show is a lot more high energy. So I'm psyched about our guest today. So this is the Podcast Engineering Show, session number 46. Let's do it. That's right. This is session 46. I'm happy to be here with you guys. This is the show where we talk all about the audio engineering side of podcast production. We get into the audio, the sound quality, the production speed. We don't really talk about marketing and listeners and podcast feeds and all that stuff. It's all about the sound quality. I'm Chris Curran. I produce podcasts for many business authors and the likes of Forbes and Dun & Bradstreet as well. And every week on this show, I talk with an expert or a podcast producer or a podcaster, and we go through their equipment and their workflow, and we really find out what they're doing, how they're set up, what they're doing to sound good. It's just awesome. I have a background in audio engineering, and when I entered podcasting about 5 years ago, I realized that most podcasters don't have this, like the fundamentals of audio engineering. That's why I started the school, which is happening in about a month. Damn. Mike, can you tell that I'm psyched about Podcast Engineering School?
Chris, I want to offer my congratulations to you. I've been hearing you talk about it. I'm a big fan of your show. I'm excited to be here and excited for you to get the school off the ground.
I'm telling you, Barry, you're gonna be there, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, good. Barry's the maintenance guy in my old building. Imagine if I could really fly Barry out from New Jersey to Denver.
I think there'd be a lot of people who would like to meet Barry.
Right. Imagine Barry is just there we'll put a mic in front of him, and every now and then we'll be like, so Barry, what's up? And he'll just talk. We'll all listen.
I think that's a great idea.
If you implement the best of what you learn on this show, your podcast production will sound a lot better and you'll spend less time producing them. So do you know anyone who's in medical education who has an interest in podcasting? Because I'm going to be in Lexington, Kentucky on April 21st and 22nd for the podcasting course. That's what they're teaching. Well, we're teaching. I'm helping because I'm one of the keynote speakers. We're going to be teaching the medical education folks and in the surrounding medical fields all about podcasting. So if you know anyone who's in the medical education and they're into podcasting, send them to thepodcastingcourse.com. I'm psyched. That's happening next month. It's going to be great. My guest today is Mike Murphy. He's a one-man band. I mean, in every sense of the word. He's the host and producer of Mike Murphy Unplugged. His website is mikemurphy.co. And it's interesting that on your website, you have a little section called the Podcaster Toolkit.
I'm sort of a curator of tools and gear and all sorts of things that are helpful for people. So the Podcaster Toolkit is kind of my website in the works that I'm trying to put together for a big podcast resources site. So it's taken me a little while to put it all together. There's just a lot to it, and I'm, like everybody else, we're all busy doing things, but it's a slow work in progress, and I'm excited for it.
There you go. So people can check it out, the Podcaster Toolkit, all kinds of resources. That's great. It's so funny how resources come in handy when you're in a pinch, like you don't know something and you can just go somewhere, and obviously YouTube's the best for that, but certainly folks should go check out the section on your website about the Podcaster Toolkit.
I seem to be the person that people are always asking me for advice. What should I buy this? Or what should I do that? What should I, what tools should I use? What software should I use? So I'm just making a giant list of all the things that I give out. So,
which is so helpful. I mean, that's what happens on the Facebook groups. Like if you're on any of the Facebook groups for podcasting, like the Podcast Movement or Mark Johansson's Podcasters Gear Group.
Which is great. It's just hard to keep track of it all. My memory only holds so much. Basically, it's a list for me, and I figure it's going to be helpful for others. So once I get it all together, I think it's going to be good for everybody.
Yeah, and the Facebook groups are like a curse and a blessing because every day there's someone on there going, "Hey, I'm going to start a podcast and I want to record a microphone 360 degrees. What should I get?" But it's cool because look, if you're there and you have something to something to offer, you just put it in the comments, and people need help. And look, we can't help everybody, but it's a nice forum for sure.
Yes, social media is great like that. I mean, I'm a fan. Like, you can waste a lot of time, but it's also, if you think about it, like, you really can find out solutions to just about everything today. Just ask it a question, like, there's always helpful people. You get some negative comments, but for the most part, I think everybody's helping, and I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, a little while ago, I confused everybody. I asked like this cryptic kind of deep question about podcasting, about if I was to try to contact every single podcast in existence, how would I do that? Anyway.
That might take you some time.
Right. But apparently someone said, you can, I guess, because iTunes is open, it's public, you can download every listing in iTunes, and that there's a contact email for every show. So, but I don't want to spam people. That's not why I asked, but anyway, interesting. So let's get to the speed round, Mike Murphy.
I'm ready.
We got to know about your equipment and your workflow. Just, again, give us the high level, about maybe 1 or 2 minutes. Just literally take us through. You're about to record a session. What equipment do you got? How does the workflow happen?
Perfect. I keep things real simple. I use a Shure SM7B dynamic microphone, classic.
Yes.
It's on a Rode PSA-1, the boom arm.
Okay.
Then my SM7B is connected to a Cloudlifter, the CL1, just a single edition Cloudlifter. And what that does is just adds a little bit of extra gain before it goes into my preamps. The SM7B, as you probably know, is kind of a gain hog. So it's the Cloudlifter just gives it that nice little bit of extra gain before it goes into the mixer. And my mixer that the Cloudlifter is then connected to is an Allan and Heath Z10 mixer. And then I use Sony MDR 7506 headphones to monitor everything. And then my mixer is connected to my MacBook Pro via USB, and I record directly into Adobe Audition. I'm using the latest version of Adobe Audition. I've been kind of a long-time user of the Adobe suite, so Audition was kind of a no-brainer for me when I started the podcast. And you want to know my Audition workflow too? Just how I set it?
Yeah, just go over it real quick, sure,
Okay.
And then we'll pick through it.
Yes, so in Audition, I create a new audio file, a blank file, 44.1, 32-bit float, mono file. My levels, I usually keep them, I go in about -18 to -6, kind of at the high end. I just kind of keep a nice headroom. Then when I'm done recording, I save that file as an original, so I just don't touch that. I just put it in. And then on Audition, you can do what's called like copy to new. So I'll just do a blank copy, and that's what I'll do any effects on. Just in case I do anything destructive, I always have that original just to kind of go back,
Nice.
save the day.
Yes.
So that's just my safety net. I'd rarely use it, but it's just good to know. And then for editing, I keep things super simple. It's pretty much me recording. I know what I'm talking about because I have a script usually. So I kind of am prepared for each episode. And then basically I just go through from start to finish. I edit out any gaps, any just blatant mistakes. If I need to record something over, I do it. So then add a little bit of EQ. I just roll off the low end. I add like air, I guess it's called, just a little bit of high end. I do a little bit of cut. I know you're big on like the 400. I go in about there, 2200, I think. And then I normalize the -3 dB usually before I go into the multi-track. Yes, and then I go into multi-track. I have a template already pre-made in the multi-track.
What is that, real quick?
Okay, so
Another software?
no, multi-track session in Adobe Audition. So basically what I do, the first thing I do is record a new audio file. So that's just a straight file, right?
Right.
And then when I'm done with that, when I've done my edits, just the kind of basic edits, then I open up a new multi-track session in Audition.
Got it.
Now, what's great about the Audition stuff is that you can save templates. So when I open a new template or a new multi-track session, I have a preset called Mike, and Mike just basically has my intro and outro music. I drag in my audio file that I just recorded, the podcast that I just recorded, and I just line it up, and I'm pretty much done at that point.
Nice. And then you create the MP3 right out of Adobe Audition.
Yeah, in Audition, I'd say about 3 months, well, it depends when this comes on, but a few months ago, basically they came out with a new thing called the Essential Sound Panel. And that's basically meant to give like a one-stop fix for, it's kind of like the Auphonic of Audition now. So it's basically, they have presets made with compression, EQ, de-esser, kind of a full effects thing, which is actually pretty nice. And I've been using that quite a bit. So you can do that in the multi-track. So what you do basically is you set, so I'll have a dialogue track, and you can have separate settings for each track. So music track, ambient track. And so you can set the loudness, you can set the EQ, compression. Basically, it's pretty cool. It's just sliders up and down.
Nice.
So you just slide.
Does there happen to be a Barry track?
Yeah, oh yeah.
There is a Barry track. No. You could probably get the Barry sound, because some of it can be, they have effects that you'll never use, and
People have tried to imitate Barry. It never ends well. It just you can't touch Barry. It's like covering a Beatles song or something. You gotta just watch yourself. You're gonna make a fool of yourself most times. Anyway,
awesome. yeah. So the Essential Sound Panel I think is pretty cool. You can pretty much, they have like a podcast voice preset. I started there. I just basically, you slide the levels until you get a sound that you kind of like. I just keep things I want things to sound really natural. Like, I don't want effects. I don't want to sound like a radio voice. I just want to sound like me. Yeah, so I do that. When I'm done with that, now the Essential Sound Panel, you can go in and set the LUFS. You can do the loudness standards. And there's a way to get it to -19. I think -23 is sort of the out of the box, default. But typically what I do when I'm done lining up my tracks and getting everything good in the multi-track, I actually save it as I export the whole session as a WAV file, and then it saves it inside Audition. And I just take that and I drag it onto the match loudness. It's like a filter in Audition. And what's nice about that is I know that the finished product is going to be the like I save it to -19 LUFS since I'm just doing a mono file.
Right.
So I do -19. I can put a hard limiter in the match loudness. I set that at -1.5 dB, so I never go above that. And I know that my finished product is, at the -19. I found it's a little tricky in the Essential Sound, or at least for me, I have like a really simple intro and outro music. I mean, it's really basic. But when I try to set those to a certain standard, it kind of throws off the whole mix. But when I put it, and I'm sure it's me. Like, I could probably spend more time and dial that in. But the match loudness is so quick, you literally just drag it in, press a button, and you're done. So
right. Well, it makes sense to mix your voices and your music. You mix it within the multi-track. You level it. You make sure everything sounds good relative to each other, and then what you're doing is perfect. Mix it down and then level the entire track. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think the Essential Sound, you can do it, the whole thing at once. Probably if you spend a little more time, fine tuning each. But I figure the way you just said it and the way I do it, I think is the easiest. So
yeah, and I was thinking about this too, because I've been using the Isotope Ozone 7 mastering software a lot lately, and I love it. And there's such a benefit to doing things in stages. Like, just because you can do, let's say in one Adobe Audition session, let's say you can do everything. You can record, you can edit, multi-track, you can add your sounds, you can set the output level, and then literally render it and say, I'm done. There's my MP3. That's okay. But going through the different stages gives you time to almost optimize what you did in the last stage, kind of fix any little mistakes you made, and so it gives you a couple times to reflect on it and tweak it. And the couple tweaks makes a big difference. It's just like, one of my spiritual teachers said, it's like cleaning a rag let's say there's a rag that's really, really dirty, and it's been dirty for a long time. You can't wash it all in one wash. You'll destroy the rag, right? You have to wash it a little and then let it dry and then wash it a little more. So some things in life, it's not good to do it all in one shot. Some things it's better to make it in stages, and then the output, the final product is much better.
Yeah, this is kind of related, but for the last 10 years, I've been sort of a professional photographer or photo retoucher and whatnot. And so I think I've trained myself to have that sort of really simple steps. Like if you went into Photoshop and just applied a whole bunch of effects right away, you're going to have a mess. You know, like there is like a finesse process to it, and it's very subtle, but I've sort of taken that same approach to pretty much everything that I'll make or whatever. Like you do it in little increments, you'll get the best results, I think, 99% of the time, as opposed to just, you know, blaring it with one big effect.
Well, Mike, I got to thank you for coming up with a good analogy after my lousy analogy to a dirty rag. Come on, I was trying.
I was trying to save you. No.
No,
It made sense to me. I knew what you were saying.
No, I know.
I knew what you were saying.
I hear you.
For sure.
All right. So, and then you make your MP3, and I was going to ask you something else. Oh, we'll get back to it.
MP3, I do 128, 30. I do everything in 32-bit. That's the way Audition kind of works its best, and the way I was taught. So it's 128, 44.1, 32. And I know 128's overkill for a lot of people, but I've tried it low. I've tried it at 64 and 96, and it's been a while since I've tested it again. Like I should probably go back, but I didn't like the sound when I went down below 128, so I just kept it at that. My podcast is never more than 17 minutes. It's usually like 15. So my file size is, you know, it's usually, I think it's like 1 megabyte per minute, pretty much at the 128.
Yep.
So I just keep it at that. So
it's interesting because mono, you're finalizing it into mono. Mono at 128 is the same thing as stereo in 256.
Okay,
and
so
what that means is
much.
most people do stereo at 128, and which
Right.
means at mono it's actually 64. So you're
right.
And that's sort of
Overkill.
known as the standard or average quality, right? So you're double that, yeah. But because you're mono and because you're 17-minute episodes, file size is not a big issue.
Yeah. So, and that, I mean, whether I should probably go revisit it, you know, this was when I was first starting out, I was really just crazy about, you know, every little nitpicky. And I think
Right.
most people realize as you start to go and time and everything else gets in your way, you stop losing that obsession. You know, I'm always obsessed with quality and doing things well, but, you know, I'm not like I was when I first started.
Neurotic?
No, not neurotic.
Pathological? Actually, I don't know what that word means, pathological. I hear people say that. I don't know what that means.
I don't associate that with good things, typically.
Okay. Well.
But, yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying. And, yeah, I've lost that crazy thing I think that every new podcaster starts off with, especially when you're not an audio expert from the start.
Well, let me just resolve something. I just looked up pathological. Of or relating to pathology. Oh, that helps.
Oh, that's helpful.
Involving, caused by, or of the nature of a physical or mental disease. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it has to do with a mental. Okay, so yeah, that word
I think
did
you
not.
associate that with lying, typically.
Okay. Oh, right. Oh, there's another definition. Compulsive or obsessive. There you go. So it wasn't quite the wrong word to use, but maybe it was a little strong. How do you connect with guests and record them?
I don't have guests. So again, that's like having a mixer for me is definitely overkill. I only got a mixer so I could actually play with it, you know, and kind of just learn it. And in case I ever did decide to go guest, I mean, you never know. I'm not married to having one format of a show. I think people can change. And, you know, I've always been open to doing different things. Like there might be a time that I interview guests. It's not my nature necessarily. It's not something that I ever really wanted to do from the beginning. I really just wanted a show to teach people and to just talk, you know, just to have my own show type thing. So having guests was never really part of my plan. So
Got it.
I've only needed to speak to people basically, you know, in terms of, so I've let the other people have to figure out how to connect with guests.
There you go.
But
All
I
right.
do know how.
What?
I said, I mean, I've learned how in case I need to, you know,
Right.
but
Yeah, I mean, right. You would probably just do it through Skype and get that
Yeah, most likely.
eCam recorder or something.
yep, most likely.
Yeah, most likely. That's
And I mean, I have, you know, recorded people or, you know, had conversations with people where I've needed to do it, but never in an official podcast manner.
right. That's good. If and when you do that, that'll bring a whole nother dimension to your production because in your multi-track, you're going to have, well, first of all, right now you're processing and editing your vocal track by itself first. Right. And then after that, once that's done, then you're bringing it into a multi-track session. What you're going to have to do, if you have a guest who's recorded on a separate track, you'll have to do that editing and that optimizing in multi-track.
In multi-track, yeah. And I would probably record right into multi-track.
Totally.
Yeah.
Right. And then you have your session. And even what I do is like I have a template because I use Reaper. I have a template that I just open up and then I record into the template, and the template already has all my effects channels and it has different things in there already, which I have them all disabled when I'm recording.
Right.
And then when I go to mix, I just enable all the effects and all that. You could do that with music tracks as well. You could, in your template, you could have your intro music there, but just mute that track. And then, so when you record, you won't hear any music and it doesn't matter. But then after you record, you just unmute that track of music and then you slide things around so it lines up and boom, you're done.
Yeah, they make it, the software just keeps seemingly getting easier and easier to, automate things and keep things, that you're doing over and over again, which is great. Audition has a lot of things that you can save favorites and, record stuff like that. I don't probably take advantage of it as much as I do, but because I'm kind of got a simple setup, it's not super necessary. But if I did what you're saying, I definitely would, try to automate it a little more so I didn't have to redo it over and over again.
Right. So, well, yeah, I mean, you're using a bunch of different effects and the essential sound panel thing as well. Yeah, you could, I mean, I'm sure you have presets saved within there, right? Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that's good.
Basically, before I was using that, I was using just kind of the basic EQ. I did like just a regular compression, like a single compression. Multiband compression is something that I haven't quite gotten that down yet. Like I really could use some work on that. It's not something I use, I'm not comfortable with that yet, or I guess, so I kind of ignore that. And then I just use like a single band compressor is what I used to use. But then when the Essential Sound came out, basically, it has like a dynamic slider is basically what it is. And that, you can pretty much dial it into a sound, that fits you, and then you just save a preset when you're done. Once you get everything dialed in the way you want it, I save it as a preset and then I'm done with it. So
nice. All right, so let's step back through. You use a Shure SM7B microphone, which was my previous microphone as well. Now I'm using an RE20. Until the day when I can maybe soundproof my studio enough where I have this big, large diaphragm condenser. Well, it's kind of big, but it's a large diaphragm condenser microphone. It's called an Avantone CV12, and it's a knockoff of an actual AKG C12, which is a C12 is known in the music industry as one of the greatest vocal mics ever. Yeah. It'll cost you an arm and a leg. I don't even know if they make them anymore. I didn't even look because unless someone hits the lottery in podcasting, you would never use that mic. Although that one, the C12, the original C12, and the Neumann U67, those are two vintage mics that I would love to own, but I probably never will, and it's really not a big deal.
No, but everybody is the 67 similar to I know the 87 is the one.
Yeah, the 87 came later. The 87 is a great mic as well, but the 67 was a tube version, and it sounded smoother. It was one of those mics where it was like, man, they just hit the nail on the head. What's cool is though you can rent these things sometimes. Yeah. Well, if you're in a big city like New York or LA, there's rental companies. You can, if you ever wanted to rent like a vintage mic for a day, you can. I mean, it might cost you $150, $200, but you can rent it and use it.
Yeah, I know there's apps too that I've seen on Instagram and stuff. A few people have sort of connected with me that you can actually simulate the sound of the good classic mics as well. I haven't played around with them too much, but I've seen that you can sound like you're talking in them or just get an idea what they sound like. So
yeah, and there's two ways to do that. I'm kind of glad you brought this up because there's two ways to do that. The first way is you speak into your own microphone, you record it into your computer, and then boom, it's recorded. Then you apply a plugin or some processing or a program, whatever it is. You apply the effect to it, and that effect changes the sound you already recorded to sound more like it was recorded on a U67 or something like that.
Right.
The other way, which I've just learned about recently, and this is dangerous for a guy like me, I learned about the universal audio stuff.
Okay,
and I talked to Jason DeFilippo about it a few episodes ago. But you can actually get an audio interface where you have your microphone and you plug your mic into the XLR jack in the front, or there's usually, I think the one I wanted, there's 8 XLR inputs. You plug your mic in, and then within the unit, it actually has, again, I think it's some circuitry or some processing where it can actually, it changes the mic pre itself to act like a classic mic preamp. Now, this is a preamp. Cool. This is not the mic. This is the preamp. So, like, if the Neve 1073 was one of the greatest preamps ever, they have that plug-in where you can literally, it's like you're using a Neve 1073 preamp. Like, for real, though. Like, I mean, you're not recording your signal and then applying an effect. You're using it in the process of recording.
That's cool.
Which is sick.
I mean, it makes sense if you think about effects that they give on the keyboards and stuff. You can sound like you're playing a Hammond or something. I mean, it's sort of the same concept, right? I mean,
yeah,
which is cool. I mean,
well, one of the plugins my newer plugins is called Sheps 73. It's this guy. He's a mix engineer. His name is Sheps. I don't know his first name. That's his last name.
I know the mics.
He he's a mix engineer, and he basically helped with Waves. They designed this plugin called Sheps 73, and it's to emulate a Neve 1073 mic pre and EQ. And so I think when they first made plugins, they would just kind of design the plugin and make it sound as good as they could, and that's fine. I think these days, when they actually make a plugin to emulate a classic piece of gear, they literally get super scientific and do all kinds of tests and tweak the circuitry unbelievably so that literally when you move the knob on the plugin, it sounds exactly like you're moving the knob on the real thing, or 99%, right?
Yeah, I think that's cool. I mean, I think I have the Waves. Is it the CO1A, the compressor?
Yep.
And I read about how they made that, and it's going along those same lines. It's cool. I mean, they're not just trying to get a sound. Like, they're really using the guy that invented the original sound, and I mean, they're really copying how it was made. I think that's cool.
Yeah. And the high end, so the high end of the EQ on the Sheps 73 is a fixed frequency. It's 12K. It's just 12K booster cut. It's shelving. That's it. You don't have any other control. It's just one knob, 12K. But you add a little bit of this 12K. Talk about air. Oh man, it's just
that's awesome.
Tremendous. What a difference. And that's, I can't wait for podcast engineering school, because this is sort of the thing that we're going to do is we're going to hear the difference between, some stock EQ in Reaper versus a plugin like that. And you'll hear that it's almost night and day. It's
that's awesome.
It's so smooth when it's high quality. And that's why when you have the right tools or if you're going for a really professional production sound, you just have to get the right tools. I mean, look, and you might have to spend a little money, but once you own it, it's like, it sounds great,
Yeah, that's an issue with a lot of people with the tools. And, there's a one side that doesn't, think the gear is important. And, there's that whole argument, and I'm not going to go there.
Yeah. But they're right, though, by the way. That argument's right. The content is the most important.
But there's no question. But there's a balance, and there's a lot of people who want to do things, the high end without investing in the tools, and it's just not possible to achieve certain results. Like, you have to find that balance. Like, some people, it doesn't matter, and that's perfectly fine. But then if you want to have a super high end production, like, you do have to invest, or you have to just know the right tools and how to use them. So, it just depends what you need or what you want.
All right, so I want to talk to you about your microphone, but I just thought of this little trivia question. So I mentioned I used to use an SM7B.
Okay.
Right now I'm using an RE20. So right now I have RE20. My previous microphone was an Shure SM7B. What was the mic I was using before that? If anyone knows that, if anyone can guess, I'll give you a hint. It's a Sennheiser.
E835.
Oh, he nails it! Oh my God! Yeah, you got it. I probably said that somewhere, but did you know that?
I knew that.
Oh, you knew.
I've listened to all your episodes.
Oh my God! I'm trying to stump the guy who's just on it.
You're talking to like a trivia guy here. I have a bad memory, but I do remember weird things, especially about gear. And yeah, I retain certain things, but I do remember that because I kind of like that middle. Like I'm a big fan of the SM58. It's just one. I've had a mic SM58 since I was a sophomore in high school. I'm now 47, so I'm 30 something years of that mic.
Right.
And I think the E835 it's a mic I've never used, but it's always lumped in that sort of category of just a solid, $99, in that range of just a workhorse, and I like that workhorse sort of dependable. That's sort of the way I am, I think, in life, just kind of like just show up kind of person. And I think having those utility type equipment, like I like that sort of stuff, the stuff that you can count on. And I think that's a mic. It's been one of those mics I've sort of been like, I really would like to get one of those to have in the toolkit,
Yeah. If you ever need a mic like that, it's good. I like, I'm sure you remember, but other listeners might not. They don't all have the same photographic or audiographic memory that you have, Mike. But I actually went to the music store. I tested an SM58 along with a few others, including the Sennheiser E835. And the E835 had more presence, more clarity, and actually a significantly higher output level as well. So that's why I chose it. So it's like a 58, but in my book, it's better in certain ways. Yeah.
The Shures don't have big output levels in general. Is that sort of a common knowledge? Or
the dynamics, the dynamic mics, and that's true for dynamics across the board. There is some difference. However, for instance, I'm using an RE20, the new RE320. Okay, it's very similar to an RE20, but it's less expensive and it's a little more brighter and more clear. But that one actually has a significantly higher output level. Okay. And I think they did it that way on purpose because that helps the sound.
And do you like the 320 as well? I mean,
I do. I've only heard it. I've never tried one. Dave Jackson uses an RE320 and I like how it sounds on him. I don't know what post-production he's doing to it, but and Daniel J. Lewis, I think, uses an RE320 as well. It's a good mic.
Right.
It's a good mic.
Yeah, I've been curious about your mic, the RE20. Like, I mean, that's just kind of a standard big broadcast mic that's always gets a lot of. It's just one of those mics I'd like to kind of try for a little while.
I know it's so hard to try mics. Well, but Podfest we get to try mics because Mark Johansson comes and sets up a whole line of all these mics, and you get to talk into each one.
Very excited about that.
Anyway, but as we're recording, that's in the future. But when this is released, it will have been last week. So
I loved the RE20 that I tried.
There you go. Sorry, trying mics is so the SM7B, that is a solid microphone. You like it, right? And what mic did you use before that?
I had the Rode NT1. So that was a condenser mic. When I first got started, I did not have a podcast necessarily in mind. So I was just going to be making tutorials and kind of screencasts and stuff like that, online content. I had a Rode NT1. I didn't really know condenser dynamics. Like, I wasn't really well versed in the two for, what I do know now. So when I got it, I used that. I used a Scarlett 6i6, and that was a great setup. It sounded great. I still have both of them, and I play guitar and I sing, and that's like my go-to setup when I just want to make some music type thing. Nice. I love that mic. I like the Rode products in general. I have several different Rode mics that I use for video and whatnot. So, but yeah, once I decided I was going to start a podcast, I just kind of created. I'm not super gear heavy, but I just like to get the right stuff. Like I just want to set myself kind of up for success, or I just like to kind of do it once and be done with it, sort of thing. Even though I'm always tweaking stuff, but I just like to get the best of what I can afford, type thing. So nice. I went for the SM7B just because I knew it. I do my homework. I kind of see what people say. I sign, and then I just make a decision that was the mic I was going to try. And right off the bat, it was tough. Like, it's a tough mic to start. It's like a tough mic to get started on, I think, because it's flat. It's kind of, it's like just a workhorse, like it's just a solid. It doesn't have, the Rode NT1 has like, like there's personality to it. Like, you can hear stuff. these mics are just meant to, I don't know, like they're just very solid. But the more I use it, the more I love it. So
yeah, your voice sounds nice and clear and smooth through that mic. It seems like the right choice. In fact, I don't know if the RE20 would be better on your voice. So that's a good choice.
I mean, we don't like our own voice. I don't like my own voice, and, so like it's tough to say, but I feel like it's the right microphone, and I feel like it just, there's not much to it. Like, there's no, I didn't want anything that had effects or that sounded, did anything to it really. Like I wanted a really pure sound, and I feel like that's what these Shure mics do. So.
Right. All right. So then you go into a CL1 Cloudlifter, which is awesome. We've talked about Cloudlifters a lot on the show. I still have never owned one. I don't know if I will. Maybe for podcast engineering school, I'll have to get one just to show what it is.
I mean, how does the RE20? I would imagine it's also pretty gain hungry.
A little bit. Yeah, it's probably similar to an SM7B or maybe slightly higher output, but not much.
You have really good preamps though, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that's the trick that I'm using is called, I have a really expensive preamp and a channel strip. So I have a preamp that is so high quality that I can crank it up a little. And I don't even have to crank it all the way up, but it just adds all that clean gain right there. So it's kind of probably you with your Cloudlifter adding, 20 or 30 dB of gain?
I think it's 25 if my memory serves me.
So you're adding 25 dB of clean gain, and then you're going into your mixer. So that's really good too.
Yeah, and I think this mixer is decent. It's like a $250. It's the Z10 from Allan and Heath. Mm-hmm. I called B&H, and who I trust for a lot I've used them for years for photo. And, they seem to think that the Allan and Heath was a really good, on the lowered high end type,
right
range. I knew where it stood in the range of super good quality. But I actually am I'm a big fan of the Focusrite interfaces too. I think I probably would think that the Focusrite might be a little cleaner than this mixer. Like I have a 6i6. I would be willing to bet it's probably similar, if not edging on the Focusrite a little bit. But generally, I'm happy with this mixer. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah. It's a, like you said, it's a good mixer. It's not obviously high end, but it's good. Yeah. And what is most important is, gain staging the level along the way will make sure that you'll get the cleanest possible sound. So the problem with like medium level mixers, like, because I have a Mackie, I even have a smaller Mackie, and it's very similar to Allan and Heath. So you can take a mixer that is a decent mixer, and either you can use it really well and get a clean sound, or you can not do the gain staging right, and then there's noise. So if you use it, again, it's like anything. If you use the tool properly, it'll be really good.
I can tell you, and I know a lot of your guests use it, and a lot of people use it. I had the DBX 286S, which is very popular, it seems to be.
Right.
And I got that because everybody said it was the secret weapon, and I was doing. I started my podcast. I started a live blab. I don't know if you remember blab or not.
Yeah.
So I was doing live streaming every weekday or every week, and so that the 286 was good for the noise gate, because I had people coming and going, and I wasn't talking all the time. So that made sense, and it was like, it felt good when I was using it. But when I would record, I just felt like everything I was recording had these like, it was crud was the best I could describe it. And I mean, I tweaked I'm sure a lot of it was user error, but like I felt like I read every tutorial and I asked as much as I could to find out, whether my settings were correct on it. And I finally I fought it so much that I just said, I stopped using the 286S.
Okay.
I have it in case I wanted to bring it back, but I just felt like I was introducing noise into my recording. It sounded great when I was listening to it, so I pulled that from the chain altogether, and now I just go straight into the mixer.
That's interesting. If you ever break that out again, what I would suggest is, well, you can obviously still use the Cloudlifter because that's good for any mic pre that you're going into. But on the DBX 286, turn off everything except the mic pre. Like, there's a gate, there's a compressor, there's the high frequency detail, low frequency detail, which those are like almost like EQ really. Turn all that off and just literally use it as a mic pre. And then when you come out of the 286 into the mixer, make sure whatever channel you go into on your mixer or wherever you go, if there's a preamp, you have to turn that preamp all the way down. Like all the way down, like pretty like zero or off, whatever. It's not really off, but it's at the lowest level because like I mentioned a few episodes ago with Patrick Keller, you don't want to use 2 preamps for a mic. You just need one. Okay. So if you go into the second preamp, that's the one you got to turn all the way down.
Okay. Yeah, that might have been an issue. Yeah, and I felt like I had a whole bunch of different scenarios. I was kind of trying to do like a insert cable going back and forth, and I had a little bit of help. You know, I was doing all sorts of different configurations. I mean, I had fun experimenting with it. But I just always would feel this sense, kind of like if you record it in with compression or record it in, you know, you say you don't apply the effects when you're recording live. That same sort of feeling. I felt like I had this irreversible sort of thing that I didn't like, and when I was done with it, so I just said, you know what, I want the clean sound going in. So I just scratched it all together.
That's
and
good.
I have some issues. Like I live in an old place. My MacBook Pro has been all sorts of weird, you know, it gets introduced some sort of noise stuff. So some of it might be just I'm hearing things. Like, so I've sort of got that thing where my sound of monitoring isn't always perfect. So I have to kind of, you know, judge which is actually on the recording, you know, so I have a little bit of a balancing act. So some of it might have been in my head, but I felt like I was fighting the 286 too much. So I just pulled it. I like things simple as I can. So
yeah. So when you switched from your Rode NT1 to your Shure SM7B, you went from a condenser mic to a dynamic mic, and it's condenser mics are much more sensitive typically, and you know, really there's a lot more clarity, especially in the upper frequencies. Like it seems crystal clear, whereas dynamic mics can seem, they just don't have that level of clarity. When you made the switch to a dynamic, did you hear less clarity, and did that bother you at all? Did you have to get used to it?
Yeah, a little bit, for sure. That's what I mean. When I first started off, I was like, this feels flat, you know? Like the Rode mics have this little bit of like tingle to it or you know, like sparkle. Like you can't, it just makes you sound good. Like I'm a kind of a hack musician, but I sing and whatever, and like you sound like you're more like I want to sing into the Rode more than this. Although I'm kind of getting used to it, but it just it makes you sound just a little bit better, you know? But I think over time, at least for me, I started to really see the value in that kind of like flat sound of the Shure. Like that's the only way I can really describe it. It's probably not the way that Shure wants you to describe it, but you know, like I just feel like it's just very, you know, solid. So yeah, so
which is good for speaking, and it's good for recording because for instance, the SM7B is like you said, it's pretty much a flat mic. And the reason that's good is because a lot of mics, in the circuitry of the mic itself, they'll add a bunch of low end, they'll add a bunch of high end, like they'll make it sound better. Like they think they're making it sound better. And to a super novice, it might sound a little better. But for someone who, like mostly those mics, when you go and start mixing it, you have to roll off that low end and roll off some of that high end. Like, you know what I mean? Like so a mic that is a solid mic in the mid range, like the SM7B or the RE20, they're good for solid reasons, but they're just not as sparkly as the condensers, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I'll bring back like the photo analogy. It's like, it's the same thing in my head. It might be, but when you go in clean, if you want to do stuff in post, like you start at that fresh, you know, like you're at the 0 point. So it's like a lot easier to get a sound that you want at the post end if you do want to make changes, I think, when you go in clean, you know, so.
Yeah.
Like I like that of just going in as simple and clean as possible. So.
Yeah. And then if you're ever gonna broadcast live or something like that, then it kind of changes the story a little bit. Like everything I do, I record through my mixer. I record all the guests on different channels and at different tracks and everything. If I was going to broadcast something live, I would start twisting the EQ knobs on all these mics, on the mixer itself. Because if someone does not have enough low end and it's going out live, I need to add some low end because it's going out live. But if you have the luxury of recording everything and going back later and taking your time and listening and applying processing, then you do want to record it flat.
Which I think is why I liked having the 286 handy when I was doing like the live stuff or when I was doing Blab, because I could sort of just play with it. I could get the sounds up, and it wasn't like I was controlling other people's sound, but I had a much more sort of sound that I knew it didn't matter. Like I just wanted it to sound good that night. Like it didn't really necessarily matter that I was going into a recording track to produce for my podcast. So
nice.
So when I can do that now, I think I was mostly using my interface when I didn't have the mixer then. So having the 286 was nice too. So
nice. Mike, I'm really glad you could come on. And I have one last question. And your website is mikemurphy.co. You can go there and check out the Podcaster Toolkit, right? All the resources and stuff you have there, which I definitely want to check out. I didn't have time to check it out beforehand, but certainly happy to have you on the show. So what is the next piece of gear you're going to upgrade, or what's the next piece of gear you're going to purchase? Do you have any idea?
I don't know, actually. I think I would do maybe another interface. Like I'm thinking about maybe doing like one of the newer lines of Focusrite for travel. I kind of have a mobile podcast setup. That's sort of a future long-term goal, is to have a little bit more of a mobile setup. I've done a lot of stuff on the road or on the go already, but I think I'd probably go for one of the newer, maybe like the Thunderbolt interfaces.
Okay.
I would like a higher end interface, but small. I haven't really, I don't have any piece of gear that is really itching to buy right now.
I know the Focusrite came out with a new line of interfaces called the Claret, but I haven't looked into it enough. It looks like the Scarlett. It looks like the line of Scarletts, but it might be better. I don't know. Or it's connected through either, a different type of connection than USB. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I like those. I'm also a big fan of the Zoom products. I would like to get my hands on some of the new, like the Zoom recorders. I have an H6, which I love. But some of the new interfaces, I like the new stuff that are going to be, making it really easy to record with iOS devices. So I'm really kind of intrigued by some of those interfaces that are kind of crossing the line between making, the iOS devices. That's something that I will be going a little more heavy on, I think, in the future.
Right. You know what I want is something that doesn't exist. I want some sort of a recorder, think of a portable handheld recorder that can connect up to let's say 8 different Bluetooth devices. So let's say I'm sitting around a table with 4 of my friends.
Okay.
And I want to put a digital recorder in the middle of the table. I want each of us to wear our own little Bluetooth earbuds or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Or even like a lav mic, whatever. Just connect Bluetooth with 5 different devices and record those 5 devices on 5 separate tracks. That's what I want, and it doesn't exist. But anyway, and
I wonder if the new Apple Bud technology, it sounds like they're just scratching the surface with some of that technology. I wonder if that's going to help us somewhere down the line. I sort of have this feeling that it's going to, with third-party apps picking up. I just got a sense that they're just starting to, like, this technology of the earbuds, or the Bluetooth earbuds, are just like, there's a lot more that we're about to see.
Right, and it reminds me of sort of like a department store where all the employees are wearing the little headset with the transmitter pack and receiver pack. And like cops have mics. Like a lot of people are mic'd up, and I think in the future, like a lot more people are, like, maybe it's through the Bluetooth headphones, but people are going to be able to connect with each other like that somehow. I don't know.
I mean, the apps on the phone are pretty good. Like, I've gotten some really great sound just recording into my iPhone. There's several different apps that are pretty solid when you record into it. So if you're able to get kind of a remote or Bluetooth, I have trouble with Bluetooth. A lot of I think Bluetooth is going to be the issue on a lot of cases, just in connectivity. But I can see very well having that kind of remote microphone and being able to record. Multi-track might be a challenge off the gate. For your friends.
Oh, really? Come on. Am I asking for too much, Mike? Jeez.
For me, it might work, but I don't know about your group, but we'll see.
No, I hear you. Like Jason DeFilippo said, he's like, because I had a different idea with him, and he's like, yeah, that would be a great idea, but only like 7 people in the world would buy it. like me and a few other audio engineers. So
Yeah, but I think you're onto something for sure. I think we're going to see more of that simple, like the multiple interview type possibilities. So.
Right. All right. MikeMurphy.co. Mike, thanks a lot, man, for coming on the show.
Chris, it was an honor to be here. Congratulations on the school. Super excited for you.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for listening. And by the way, if you have any questions, you can comment on this post. If you have questions for me or Mike, comment on the post. You can always send me questions, comments, etc. If you have any questions about Podcast Engineering School in April, just email me or call me. All the information's on the website. I really appreciate you listening. We are happy to be part of your sound quality and production speed journey. So until next week, you know what to say, Mike. Sound great!
I walk away from Rivera, and you can play that part so well. Why do you play it out on me now? You like to lose control where it's quite a feeling, isn't it? They're floating, drifting down, now. You tell me that you found something better. How should I respond to that? It's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. What do you want me to say? It's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. You react so angry. You change your attitude where you say I just don't get it now. You say your eyes so far away now. Gave up on me where some chance you gave me gave away. You say I wouldn't understand now. You tell me that you found something better. How should I respond to that? Oh yeah, I say now it's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. What do you want me to say? It's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. You react so angry. I want you to know you were always true. I gone over all we've been through. Doesn't seem that long a time now. Things we did still hold their meaning. And does it mean it's still the same? You're pushing me away. You worked your theories now where you getting worked up on your now. You work your way around somehow now. Yes, it hurts me now where that you don't talk to me now. Now that these words have slid apart now. Tell me that you're